Hello, okay, so today I'm going to do a wet on wet watercolour landscape, and I'm going to be using a few layers, and I really love this colour palette that I used for another painting, and it's basically cobalt blue with cerulean blue, some Payne's grey and some burnt sienna as well as a red. So I'm just mixing my burnt sienna and my red there and doing a really thin layer all over the paper, and that's wetting the paper. And here I'm just adding the cerulean blue that has a tiny bit of the Payne's grey in, and I'm putting the Payne's grey at the bottom. I know that I'm going to be using the Payne's grey quite strongly at the bottom. I want to make the bottom of this painting quite dark, and I'm putting my cobalt blue in there as well, and some of that mix of the red and the burnt sienna. So I know I want this to be a mountain scape, so just putting a very light outline of the mountain there, and I'm going to be darkening my colours now. So I'm starting with the Payne's grey, and I'm using a knife just to make some marks there in the paper. So I'm laying down more of the colours in the positions they already are to make the colours brighter, and I'll just put the music up for a bit while I do that. Okay, so I'm just using my knife there to make a bit of texture in the paint. Now I'm going to leave this layer to dry now. I'm kind of happy with it, and then I'm going to be doing more wet on wet on top of this. So what I did was I got my brush and I washed it, and I'm just putting a thin layer of water on top, and I'm just going over it once because you've got to be really careful not to disturb the paint underneath. So the layers have dried quite a bit light, as they always do with watercolour, so I'm just going over them again with more or less the same colours that I've got underneath, but just adding a few more elements. So I'm pretty happy with how this layer is looking, and I'm going to let it dry. Now I know that it will dry lighter. You could do the same painting with acrylics, and you wouldn't have this thing of it drying lighter. It would just dry how it looks, more or less. It might dry a bit darker. But anyway, I'm using watercolours. I usually use watercolours, so you have to accept that as part of the process and sort of factor it in to how you work with the paint. So I'm going to do some more wet on wet work, and I'm just going to wet the paper there very lightly with my clean brush and water, and I'm just putting another layer of paint on there. It's very faint, you can hardly see it, but it is darkening that background mountain a little bit. Okay, so while I finish this painting off, I'll put the music up, and I'll just put some text on the screen to say what I'm doing at points, and I'll jump in again at the end. So at this point the painting really wasn't finished, and I really liked some elements about it, but I knew that I'd have to make a few bold moves to really make it feel finished. So I decided that I'd have to really go for it and add some more layers. I added a kind of neutral blue line in the middle there. But I really wasn't happy with the Payne's grey. It was too light, so I really went for it, and I made it really quite dark. And that just kind of unified the bottom of the painting. I feel like it makes the top part stand out more, and it gave it a kind of graphic, more of a graphic quality, which I really like. So then I just ran my brush across the top with some water just to soften that edge. And I was really starting to feel quite happy with this painting, but I needed to kind of balance out the bottom bit, which is quite dark now. So I just decided to go for it, and I put another more neutral layer at the top. Okay, so I'm just putting a bit more Payne's grey and then softening the top of that with my brush. But basically this painting's finished now. I'm going to take the tape off, and I had to flatten it because I'm going to mount it onto some wood. There is a tutorial about flattening the paper and I'll put a link in the description. So this is what it looks like flattened, and I did add a pencil line across the middle, and once I'd done that I was able to mount it onto the wooden panel. And I didn't film this, but there is a tutorial on my channel about how to mount onto a wooden panel and how to finish it with cold wax so that you don't need to frame it behind glass. But anyway, I really hope you've enjoyed this demonstration tutorial, and if you did, please hit like, and if you'd like to see similar videos in the future, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I've got loads of videos about creating watercolour paintings, and I'd love to see you in the next one. Okay, bye!